Welcome back. We are waiting on the arrival of Russian President Putin for his summit with President Trump in Helsinki this morning. The meeting will be one for the history books. But how will it stack up to other historic meetings between the United States and Russia? Joining us right now to talk about that, presidential historian, former advisor to President George H.W. Bush and George W. Bush, Doug Wead. Doug, good to see you.
Good to see you, Maria.
What's your reaction to today's summit?
Well, I think it's going to be very important. I see the criticism, and it kind of amazes me. FDR put it this way. He said, sometimes you have to walk with the devil to get across the bridge. He, of course, not only met with Joseph Stalin, he was an ally of Joseph Stalin. And to give a little comparison today, what Trump's facing with Putin is the meeting of Reagan and Gorbachev. Under Gorbachev, it was against the law to own a Christmas tree. There was still a concentration camp, Perm 36. The Soviets were protecting Pol Pot, who was in retirement, being protected by the Chinese and Soviet governments. He had killed 4 million of his own people. So I hear Bill Browder. I was in Russia when Sergei Magnitsky died, and I have my own hair-raising story related to that.
Wow.
But under Gorbachev, there were thousands of political dissidents sent to psychiatric hospitals, and they were being murdered. But if Reagan hadn't sat down with Gorbachev, maybe the Cold War would not have ended. So there's sometimes a utility for these meetings.
We've seen some summits not go too well afterwards. Specifically, if you look at the meeting between Eisenhower and Khrushchev, there was all this excitement and fanfare and a chance to maybe end the nuclear arms race, but it went south. How do you see this meeting and the potential discussions, let's say, about bringing down the nuclear arsenals that both countries have pointed at each other and making sure our treaties are in good standing?
Yeah, I think you hit on it, John, that part about bringing down the arsenal. I'd love to ask that same question of Maria and Steve, because they've interviewed Donald Trump many times. But my brief encounters with the president on a couple of different private meetings is that he's just monomania focused on making America great again. And I think that was behind him going to NATO, trying to get them to increase spending, and now going to Putin and trying to talk him into decreasing spending. Let's use some of that money for bridges and airports and roads, which Russia needs as badly as we do. And if we could lower some of the costs, if he could have that private talk with Putin and say something similar to that he did to Kim Jong-un, let's quit war. We'll quit wargaming Baltic states if you quit wargaming Baltic states. Some of that money could be saved. I wouldn't be surprised in his zero focus on Make America Great Again if that's what's going on here. There's a lot of win-win for America in dealing with terrorism and dealing with North Korea if Russia will help us.
Do you think, Doug, that there's any chance that Putin is going to change his behavior at all, or is it going to take more pressure from the West? From us?
Well, it may take more pressure, but it's just such a different world now than it was. I mean, as you know, the income tax rate in Russia is 16%. There's probably more religious freedom in Russia than there is in America.
Wow.
And you're not going to get
great.
Putin
Doug,
out of Crimea.
Thank you so much, Doug. Great to talk with you this morning. Doug Wead, and I want to thank you, Johnathan Wachtel, for joining us this morning. Great to have you.
Pleasure.
Please come back soon. Still ahead, President Trump's summit with Russia's Vladimir Putin, expected to be underway within the next hour. We've got a live report right here. Stay with us.